The first question is from Melissa. How do we change our culture from landlord to community maker, with all owners contributing to create the community?
What has been happening in all of these communities is that you need to start with the committed community team who then goes out and invites the landlords to participate. So, it may be different in terms of who the different leadership agencies in the South Australian and Adelaide City government should be. But people respond to a community challenge and to an invitation. And there's nothing as powerful as knowing by name who's homeless and how many people need to be housed. You can be very specific and galvanize the landlord community around solving a very specific, not a general problem.
Now, if you want to ask a question from the floor, could you quickly put your hands up and we'll get the microphones to you? So the next Slido question is... Well done, thank you. They're highlighting things here for me. Those 105,000 that were housed, have they been sustained? Were they housed mostly in supported housing?
Most communities in the United States don't have purpose-built supportive housing, so they really had to rely on either their public housing or their private rental landlords. And in every case, people were matched with support services, so people, for the most part, were moved into housing in the community in mainstream buildings with a care team that would visit them. And in terms of the sustainability, we know from the communities that have consistently reported that well over 85% have been sustained. And so, it's worked for the vast majority using, again, the resources the communities had.
Yeah. Now, questions from the floor? Anyone with a hand up? I've got two people down here, one down here, one lady here. That lady can start, I think. And could I have the other microphone here in the front row? Hello, thank you.
How do things work out for most needy when probably most people feel that they are most needy?
We created with...
Is
this working?
Can we get a microphone here for Rosanne?
We created with a company in Canada called OrgCode, something called, and we need a better name for this, the Vulnerability Index Services Prioritization and Decision Assistance Tool, the VI SPDAT. So it's a mouthful, but basically it's a research-based triage tool. And there are standard questions that are asked and then scored as far as length of homelessness, age, certain medical conditions, as well as critical information that could help in matching someone to housing. So it's your VI SPDAT score that is a key driver of who is in the most urgent category. It's almost never the only input to a community's decision, because sometimes an outreach worker or caseworker will know a fact that might, add color to the situation. But it's that standardized triage tool that is not unlike what would be used at a hospital to decide, like, you need brain surgery, you need aspirin. The standardization of the screen is a really important dimension to why all of this is working.
For me, language is critically important, and two observations in the process was obviously identifying people by name, and then secondly, the notion of homeless neighbours. And so I'm just wondering, was that a deliberate strategy to promote the inclusiveness of that particular client group through those two approaches, and market that we are all working with trying to include the vulnerable group?
Mm-hmm. Well, you're absolutely right that language matters enormously, but those values are also strategies and having communities take responsibility for going out and identifying who's actually homeless and what are their names and stories. I mean, I've been on enough of these, in the middle of the night, creating the basic registry and by name list experiences where people have such powerful encounters that it becomes very personal to them. Like, I want to solve homelessness in my town. I can't believe that someone who's had that difficult a life is living in a gully outside a truck stop, in the middle of winter in Albuquerque. So,
Okay, look, we've just hit the time barrier. Well, in fact, we hit the time barrier about 15 minutes ago, I think. It's not Rosanne's fault, I promise, as. So what we're going to do is keep the questions. You're around for lunch too, so you can either ask Rosanne personally at lunchtime, or hopefully we'll get back to them. I'm really sorry to cut it short, but we've just hit the big wall. So first of all, I'd like to really sincerely thank Rosanne for her generosity in coming, but also her great content and thoughtfulness.